What's up, Rockstars? Today I have a great unboxing for you. I have all of Massive Darkness 2 I need to unbox. Massive Darkness was the first Kickstarter I ever backed, and it's interesting to go full circle now with the second unboxing. Let's see how much I've improved, let's see how much it's improved right now. Thank you to my channel sponsor, Into the AM. As a company that believes hard work and a great product is a proper way to conduct business, I am delighted to have them as part of the channel. They have some of the coolest graphic t-shirts around and an absolute best fit and feel that has continually exceeded my expectations. With new shirts arriving all the time and other products like boxers, hats, and even a monthly shirt club, I wholeheartedly recommend them to you. Check out the link in my description of this video for an exclusive 10% off everything they sell. Alright, let's go ahead and dive into this. These are huge boxes, obviously. One thing I'm going to note is I'm actually going to take out all of the boxes from both boxes first, and then we'll go through them. So I won't be like unboxing this box fully and then going into the next one. I know I normally do that, but I want to get these big boxes out of the way. And the zoom level of the camera also needs to change drastically once I don't have this giant box to film. And so I really want that to kind of be able to show. Now, as always, a huge shout out to my patrons and YouTube members. It is through their financial support that this channel is possible. If you appreciate videos just like this, if you appreciate me buying games just like this to show to you guys, to unbox or review or otherwise just cover, there's a link down in the description below. And even $1 a month adds up to a lot. It might be little for you, but it's a lot for me, and I greatly do appreciate it. Alright, so let's take the box. Ooh, alright. We're gonna go ahead and move this. This is actually quite a thick box. I like seeing the styrofoam. I like seeing all the, you know, the bubble wrap and all that. All right, so let's see here. We have the Kickstarter upgrade pack. Oh, considering Massive Darkness was actually my first game I ever got from Kickstarter, I think that's pretty fitting. We got the Hero Monster set, Monks and Necromancers versus Paragon. And then we have, I spent way too much money on this game, guys. The Hero Monster set, Bards and Tinkers and versus Metal Angel. Metal Angel sounds like a sweet kind of band name. I'd probably listen to that band. That sounds pretty cool. Fey Folk. That also sounds like a band name, but probably not one I'd listen to. Alright, there's so much in this. Gates of Hell, again, would listen to that album. War of Souls, maybe. It sounds like one of those like epic movie trailer kind of things. So I'd probably listen to it and enjoy it, but not add it to a playlist. Druid versus Beelzebub, sounds like a great indie film. Alright, I think that's it for the small boxes. Let's dive into the big ones. Alright, first of the smaller of the ones is the Darkbringer pack, as opposed to the Lightbringer pack of the original. And the Lightbringer pack, by the way, way back then, was just a cardboard box like this. It was not a nice box like that. So that's actually nice to get the Kickstarter. Oh, dear Lord, that's heavy. Kickstarter exclusives and a box of that. Okay, I need both hands. Okay. Alright, and hold on, hit the camera. It's going to do everything. Get this box out of the way. This is exactly why I wanted to remove that. And here is Massive Darkness 2 Hellscape. Very big, heavy box here. Oh, but we're not done yet. Actually, let's go ahead and just move it over here. Let's go ahead. Alright, we'll just scooch that over. Because we got more. Okay. Now, for this box, obviously, I got way too much. You know, this is the problem that happens, right? So, at least you guys know I struggle with the same crap I talk about all the time. I'm not just talking from up on high. I'm right there with you guys. I was looking at Massive Darkness 2. I wasn't so sure about it because of the change in the art direction and the overall feel and tone of the game. And so I was like, oh, I'm really bummed. But then they introduced like an engineer class that has like pets, you know, that you can do. And I'm like, oh man, it's sold. Okay, and then they also had this expansion here. I have two daughters that like to play board games with me. They'll love that. And so I started adding up, so I was like, okay, I'll back it. I was back at the core, and maybe just add this expansion, but then I started looking like, well, okay, this is a cool pack, so I'll go and get that too. And then they came out with the all-in, which essentially like gave you kind of like 1 or 2 things for free. So I was like, okay, so I upgraded to the all-in. Was not expecting to do that, and still kind of don't know why. But here I am. Okay, so we have Heavenfall. I believe this is the campaign that I've heard nobody talk about, which is, you know, we'll see. But typically, if it's not something I'm hearing about, often means it's not necessarily the bee's knees. The 4 Horsemen, excited about that one. 4 Horsemen are fun. Rainbow Crossing. I would love to paint this. Painting with bright colors is fun because you don't get to do it very often. And then finally, the Demon Dragon box. This is a giant box for a single mini, I believe. I think maybe there's more. I think there's a few more. Either way, kind of an issue. All right, let's zoom in and dive in. All right, let's dive into the main box. Now, this is a nice artwork. I do dig it because it highlights the light very good, right? Because there's a lot of dark here. That being said, when it comes to actually sitting on the shelf, I don't think it's actually very attention-grabbing personally. While this is interesting-ish, first of all, I actually don't like that it's off-center from this, because like if you just look at it here, it looks kind of weird, right? And then I get the small characters, big enemies, but I feel like this doesn't show the enemies enough to really feel like they're against the odds. If I just got done looking at the Conan box, and it has the guys fighting the enemies, but there are so many enemies that it just seems like they're about to be overwhelmed. I think this is trying to give the sense of it being overwhelming, against the odds, brave, all that kind of stuff. But because these are just so dark, and they're just so far cut off from the side, that it doesn't really do a lot. And then there's kind of an empty void in the middle with things surrounding it, as opposed to drawing focus on something in the middle, right? And so just, I think this, I think works better, right? Because this seems much more highlighted and visible, and it still focuses them and kind of puts them on opposing sides with the Massive Darkness logo in the middle. This one, I feel, just doesn't quite sell that, my opinion. Okay, so let's flip it over to the back. So I'm going to open up this wrapping anyway. I'm going to take a look at this. Okay, so quite retail. However, I think this is interesting. So it has kind of the sidebar here that's like a good, a little bit more than a third of the actual whole space, but not half either. So there's like this big chunk here. Kind of tells you a little bit about it. The box contents, which is quite big. And then a whole lot of mumbo jumbo, legal stuff here. It's kind of interesting that this says "come on" and it's like that because that's not like their logo, right? That's the logo and it says "come on" there. So what this "come on" is versus this "come on," I don't know. I actually have no idea why this is here or what that signifies. And of course you have the miniature, the render of the board game, and it's a very kind of simplistic look with a single player, which is also kind of interesting. So it is 1 to 6 players. It's just interesting that they choose to kind of show a simplistic version of the game. And maybe that's just a space-wise because they wanted things bigger or something like that. But it kind of interesting. Normally they put 2 or 3 players kind of sitting at the table to really show off the game. But this one they're kind of showing a more limited version of it. So anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. All right. Let's go ahead and do this. Well, another thing that's kind of interesting is it says standalone here, but it's not it's like towards the very end. You have to read all of this before you even realize it's standalone. And with the number 2 and the big 10 years have passed and all this stuff, it makes it seem like it wouldn't be standalone. And then you find out at the end that it actually is. And you can play this without playing the first one. And it also, I guess, because it's standalone, it doesn't actually speak... What in God's name is that? Hold on a second. What just happened? Okay, interesting. Was this a packing thing? So I know sometimes there's an issue where they need to add a sticker, for instance, if they don't add this 14 plus, and the people in the ports, that are letting stuff in for sale and stuff like that are like, no, you gotta do all this stuff. But really, a big thing that I'm seeing this difference is here. Scratch this coating to check for authenticity. And it's separate from that, which is kind of interesting. It has like even, I think, the QR code blocked here. I'm trying to see if there's any other differences, but I don't think there really is. The number on the UPC is the same. Oh, no, this is different too. This is a 1 to 6 players, 14. Weird. And this has it down here. And this has a whole bunch of this stuff here that isn't there. I wonder if they just decided to change the retail and felt it was important to give me this version. Like, why would I... Interesting. I don't know. That's very odd. Okay. Well, that's a thing. If you guys have any idea on why on earth they would pay to add that, let me know. I would be very curious why that's the case. Either way, the back of the box is aligned with the front of the box when it comes to orientation. Packed quite full. We'll look at the corners there a bit. Let's look at the lid before we discard it. So cardboard, decent. Not the thickest, not the thinnest. The glue job is a little interesting because it's not actually super centered. As you can see, it comes down farther here than it does here. There's like a good almost ½ inch of difference there in how much this overlays compared to the other one. And it's the same on this side too. So it's like this wrap on the side is shorter, but then it's aligned up here. So, but then not here. So it's almost like this one is getting skinnier, and I'm not measuring it if this is skinnier than this, but it actually visually looks like that too. It looks like it's not quite center, and this actually is off center here. So in other words, this should line up just like this, but it's not, it's angled up. But I didn't really notice any difference in here. So, because this looks good, right? All this looks fairly even. No, you know what? Maybe not actually. If you look at this, it seems to me almost like there, well, I mean, maybe, I don't know, it's kind of hard. It looks like here, do you see the difference between the white line in here? Then you see the difference here. Yeah, do you see that? Okay, look at how much space is here. Do you see? Huge amount of space. And then look here, almost none. So my box is literally misaligned. Awesome. Okay. Strike one. I have never actually noticed that before. Now, I did have to look, and I did notice that, but you guys know I look at all of these, and I've never noticed that before. There's a slight ding here on the inside of the box, which is kind of interesting, because there was no ding on the outside. It's almost like when they put the lid on, it like hit it or something like that. It's whatever. The sides on all this are pretty good, so that's nice. And again, this is like full. So here is the rules and quests. A few things about this. Kind of nice that the rules are always here, right? Along with the quests. However, it does make it thicker than it needs to be. And if I'm looking for something like in the back of the book, like an index, I can't just simply do this because there is no index at the back. Instead, it's like the very end of the campaign. I have to find the first part of it to find the index. Now, the index is here, but it's on page 36 randomly. It's not even a page that's like stapled or anything like that, so I can't like easily navigate there. I understand it's cheaper to put it all in one, so you don't have to have a separate book, and it makes it look nice and thick, which obviously adds a little bit to how the quality you feel that it is, because, oh, look at all this content. Well, it's actually this much content and this much rules. But it makes it harder to actually use because I can't quickly flip to the back for an index. I have to go leaf for page 36. It does have an index, though. Alphabetical order, listing multiple pages, and it does not look to be header-based. So it's based off of concept, not organization. So that's helpful. That's good. Again, I don't know how the quality, the depth of this, if they needed more or less. But that is there. Looking at the rulebook, they're using stuff like bold and italics. They have the symbols in line there. They have call-out boxes. They fill up negative space with that. However, it looks like they really do focus on that. In other words, they didn't want, like if they had put this down here, right, then perhaps this bit would be up here. And they didn't want you to have to kind of do that. Understandable, but sometimes I feel it can be overdone too. So it just depends on how often they're kind of, in other words, like, did this really need to be 36 pages? Like this. This whole section here could have fit here, right? And then they started knocked out up here. And again, maybe it's because they wanted to do the level 3 there or there. And it's all design choice. They have to make these decisions. It's just interesting to note. That is disgusting, by the way. But either way, nice color. Full art is actually very pretty. They have a lot of that kind of stuff going on here. Lots of examples with dotted lines and arrows and stuff like that. This kind of arrow from the callout box is interesting. And it's a different kind of callout box. It's like an example callout box versus something like what I showed earlier, right? Like this, which is a note here. And even says note, bold, right? All this kind of stuff is actually very good. They do have other colors, right? Other differences of bold and italicized, stuff like that. So important is like this. We saw an example of notes. So that's cool. I can dig that. They do have the letters here to denote things. And it looks like they always go 1, 2, 3, 4, not like A, B, C, D. So as long as they're kind of like that. That being said, this is a matching game. So it's like in one, it'll mention E, you know, like, you know, so there's a little bit of matching there. Sometimes I like the symbol to be there instead of it being plain text. But, you know, is what it is. Now, see here, we have red arrows instead of white arrows. Not sure why they decided to change that. And it's a little bit harder to see, in my opinion, than the white. The white would have showed up better here. So, for whatever reason, they decided to not do the white in these. I don't pretend to know why they do things. I do like the showing the components, plus the names, plus the counts. It's very helpful. I do appreciate that. And then free digital content. Expand your game experience with free online quests. And there you guys go. You can scan your online quests. And then here is the chapter or table of contents, which is header based. All right. Well, from what I can tell, it's fine. It's fine. All right. What do we got here? We got more. It's still here. Free digital content. Probably the same thing. I just want to make sure you see it. And this is an explanation of how to box everything up. And it shows a little graph of it as well, which is kind of nice. I'm okay with that. So that's helpful. All right. Next up, we have these. These are wrapped. That can help, especially when it comes to like picking and stuff like that. It keeps the items together, so you're far less likely to be missing one, right? Or this fell out or something like that. So it keeps them together. It helps seal the cardboard a little bit, which might help with, you know, moisture control and stuff like that. It certainly can't really hurt it too bad. And it makes it a big, thick thing instead of a whole bunch of small, skinny ones that can maybe bend a little bit more. That being said, I'm seeing already, I think the cardboard quality is not that great. And I'm mainly seeing that because it's like already bent just from the plastic wrap that was put onto it, which is fairly weak, in my opinion. All right. Yeah, this is definitely not the best cardboard quality. In fact, from what I can tell, it's on the low end of the games that I own. All right. Kind of interesting. So we have a little card here and a little card here, and they're fine. They're fairly normal. This is kind of the longer one, that's long and skinny, but it's not like warped or anything like that too bad. There are two sides to it, and this is, I think, small enough to where I'm not too concerned about that as well. Coloration-wise, you can see everything pretty well. The white text on black is very nice. They even darken the inside of here, so I can see the Reaper easier. So that's nice. Yeah, looks good, and it looks like it's just a dual-sided kind of boss thing there. All right, now let's go ahead and look at the cardboard quality. I'm actually going to get Massive Darkness 1, and we will compare the two versions together. All right, I got some Massive Darkness 1. I literally just tried to take one of like each thing I saw in a baggie that had in the box. That's Massive Darkness 1, Massive Darkness 2. So we'll kind of do a correct comparison. Punches out nice. There's a little bit of a tag, but that seemed to come out good. I'm going to punch a few more out just to kind of get a feel for it and see what's going on. But these are actually coming out quite nicely. Let's push it from the other side. And you saw there actually is a little bit of a rip right there. So I've now ripped this. So don't do that. Some can handle that, some can't. This one, obviously, at least in the corner, it looks like will rip. So you need to punch it that way. You're welcome for ruining the game so you don't have to, assuming you haven't gotten the game yet. And actually, it looks like these doors be a great direct comparison. So let's go in and start there. So that one, see, again, there's that little bit there. And if you punch the other way, do you see that? Like, I can easily, actually, yeah, let's, come on now. All right, let's take a closer look at this. So I'm actually going to zoom in a little bit so you can see what's going on here. So right here, what you can see is right here, this little bit is attached. See, so the cut did not go this big of a distance, right? And I don't know if it's always that way, but in this one it is. It looks like it may have also stopped right here in this one. You see if I'm right there by looking at it. Yep, so did you see that little flip there? So right here, and this can rip either way now. These are equal, right? So I'm actually going to, I think, rip that way to break it off. But this could have easily have done that, and I bet I can do a test here. So let's take one that's not, I'll set this one aside. Let's take this one and compare it to the Massive Darkness 1. Okay, so let's look at the difference here. Now again, Massive Darkness 1's a little older. You got to keep that in mind too, of course. But you can see that there is a difference in cardboard quality here. So just looking straight up here, you can, this is Massive Darkness 1, Massive Darkness 2, and you can see the, I don't want to say air, but you can see the layers of cardboard different in this one versus this one, right? So if you notice here, you can still see the lines here, right? You can see the lines here, but you can definitely see the lines here. It's either thicker glue or there's just more space. It wasn't compressed as much. And then feeling the side is a little bit different as well. This feels quite smooth, and this feels a little bit rougher, a little bit more powdery, like I'm kind of messing with raw side versus one that's kind of more tightly compressed and equal. All right, let's go and take a corner. And I'm going to rub this and see what happens. It looks like on the Massive Darkness 1, you do get a little bit of flaying there, right? Just a little bit. Whereas in this one, let's see what happens. Looks like pretty much about the same. You get that one little white line there, but that's about it. But as you pick it up and you'll rub it and stuff like that, and I'm not seeing... Okay, so on the side there, you definitely see that. Do you see how it just easily comes apart? This does not happen with every game. Not all cardboard and manufacturing is created equal. Let's do that on this one. And same thing there, right? So they do definitely peel out there. So I think really the main difference between these two is just a lack of compression, which just means that this is kind of spongy and this feels more solid. This feels closer to wood. This feels like cardboard, right? And that's because of that loose fitting there, right? It just wasn't compressed as much, and as such, it's a little bit more spongy, but fairly close when it comes to that. Let's zoom back out a little bit. Take a look at this one that was kind of falling apart there, and I guarantee you have to see already just one move, and you can see that, and that's just going to get worse and worse as you kind of play with it. So yeah, there's that. This is actually still quite solid though. It's nice. I mean, it's a thick quality. It's not really bent or anything like that I can tell, which is nice. There's a little bit of sponginess. Overall, I would put this, the Massive Darkness 2, at least at average, maybe slightly below average for these kind of deluxe Kickstarter games. For retail, I would say this is about average. So that's kind of the difference there. All right, this is a Massive Darkness. No. Okay. Is there any difference? Let's actually look there. Okay, so is there a difference in, well, yeah, okay. So as you can see, Massive Darkness 1 versus 2, there is a linen finish. Do you see that? Massive Darkness 1 has a linen finish. Massive Darkness 2 does not. This one, neither of them are super glossy, but this obviously does feel nice, whereas this feels completely smooth. And that's on front and back. So there is a difference there. Also, it looks like the doors are flipped, and I wonder if that's all of them or not. So in this one, to align the open door versus the top of the door is actually reversed. Now again, I don't know if that's the same on all of them or not. Let's grab 3 different ones from Massive Darkness 2. We'll line them all up and then flip them, and they're all opening the opposite way. So they've built this opposite, right? And this one, it's that, and this one, it's the opposite, right? So it's like this. This is open, and then you close it, or you open it, and then it goes in reverse. Kind of interesting. It's not really, I mean, you know, this is nitpicky stuff, obviously. But, I mean, you probably knew that when you clicked on the video and saw how long it is. Anyway. Yeah, I mean, so these round ones, the tags are pretty good. Again, it is fairly squishy. You can really squish on that. Comparing it, it just is, yeah, a little squishy. All right. And then we also have kind of a bigger circle one here. You can, again, see that linen finish, and so a little squishy, but not nearly as much. And you can, again, kind of see that difference there in the layer layer transitions, right? This is a little bit more compressed. And while I have played with Master of Darkness 1 and not played with this, you don't compress the cardboard, if that makes sense. That's not how that works. So, yeah, but either way, I'm glad these are boards and not cards because you're going to be using these a lot. So that's kind of nice. I do appreciate that. This is nice to have. Let's look at a few of the larger things for cardboard and then move on from that because I know that was kind of a while anyway. Let's just slightly organized because I need to be able to pick up stuff. Yeah, we'll leave it right here for now. But let's go on and punch this out because dang. And again, let's punch it out correctly. Be sure to punch it out through this rounded part because you do not want that splitting, right? It's not what you want. All right. But otherwise, I mean, you know, more complex shapes seem to be coming out well. The corners here are nice. There's not really a lot of tags or anything like this. There is that white line that you see. You can kind of see that. And that's just going to progress as you touch it and you move it. And, you know, it's going to look like it's played quite quickly. And you can see probably all the dust that's coming off this, right? That was kind of a comment I made is that, you know, I have this and there's not really a lot of dust coming out, right? Let me see if I can even really show you that. Let's see here. I might have to move up here. Okay, so this is Massive Darkness 1. A little bit. And then here's Massive Darkness 2. And perhaps a little bit more. And maybe that's just from the punching out part, right? But there is, I think, a little bit different. And I can feel the difference as well on that. Okay, so I think that's good. We got some bridges, but they're just squares anyway. We got some other tokens. I've already punched out smaller ones. These are perhaps the smallest ones, but they punch out pretty okay too. They do have a little bit of tag, but not too much. Overall, I think this is fine. Okay, moving on from that. Moving on out. We got all that. And there we go. Okay, so back over to here. We have some cards. We'll look at the cards and then the plastic storage, which at least in the core box seems quite good. We'll see how that continues with optional add-ons and whatnot, which can sometimes be hit or miss. If you have seen my unboxing of Bloodborne, which I also got the all-in on, then you will have noticed in that one that the quality was very mixed, and some boxes were great and some boxes were quite terrible. It's kind of odd. The only other company I know that have had an issue having that big of a range within even a single game was Awakened Realms with stuff like just their older stuff like Tainted Grail and Nemesis. Okay, so yeah, these are fairly nice. They feel good. Again, there is no like linen finish or anything like that, but it feels nice and smooth cut here. Don't see any kind of printing error. The color is actually quite great. It's fairly dark overall. I know there's not a lot of color in this. Even the background is pretty dark and dreary. I think that's on purpose. But I don't know if there are any angels here. I don't see any angels. I would imagine the angels have a brighter background. Big area for the text with clear kind of changes and differences and values and all that. So that's quite nice. And then the artwork, good quality, right? It's definitely a certain style, like looking at that sword and these big old horns and stuff like that. So definitely a style, and they are bent. So the way you test that is you take a card or two and you flip them. And then what you'll see is the bowing of the cards, especially on the side here, the long ways, right? Long ways will typically spread out more. So you can see these are now curved this way, and these are curved this way. If they're straight, there wouldn't be any difference, front or back, side to side, whatever. So that's kind of the difference there. All right, let's look at this plastic tray here. Take a look here. So this is nice. This will almost certainly not fit sleeved cards. It might, I mean, maybe. The problem is the width, right? I think lengthwise you're good, and I think even height-wise you might be okay. I think you're going to end up with the cards that, do this whole thing. But I think it's a lengthwise, which is unfortunate because it looks like there's space, width here, which, you don't want them that close here. They do have these kind of holders to hold the different tiles and stuff like that in place. And there are these divots in that kind of press against the minis. Not perfectly, as you can see. This one, actually, I think that one did fall out. So that one slipped out a little bit by the looks of it. It should be down there, but overall, and then these have a lid, but no divot. But it looks like they stayed pretty okay when it comes to that. And it's because they're not these big trays without a big raise of a height there. I'm going to take the lid off. Maybe. Looks like we're going to take the whole thing out. All right, that's fine. Oh, it's taped. All right, so I'll comment on that. We'll get to all that stuff in a bit. Okay. So as you can see, it's taped here, and by taped, I mean terribly. It looks to me like this was a problem they solved, where they were having this issue, and then decided to start taping them, because there are multiple tapes on two different... I've never had anything taped like this. Do you see this? Like, this is done hastily after the fact. I've had some tape, and it's normally fairly exact when it's done. This could have been solved by paying to have a locking lid. So there are lids that can have a tiny little divot here that essentially lock it in, so you can't just pull straight up. There's resistance to kind of pop it out, essentially. It's not a whole lot of resistance, but it's enough to keep it in, and then you don't have to tape it at all. So especially when it was packed pretty good in the box. I'm going to have to untape this, and I'm not going to edit this out because I want to make it a point without being overly dramatic. I'm just going to talk while doing it and complain mostly about. So now I'm trying to like get it off my fingers, right? Now it's in the box. Like this is why tape is a terrible solution, and there are solutions that exist without it. Like I said, you can actually pay to have that divot. Now that probably costs more, I'm sure, than tape. I imagine tape is pretty darn cheap, right? So I imagine that's pretty cheap. But it doesn't look as good. It leaves a residue. You're either having to cut it off or peel it off or something like that. And now that see, I can't even, I think there's there we go. Now that I have these little things that will collect dust and wood flakes and all sorts of other stuff. Meanwhile, the lid's starting to come off while I'm unboxing this, just trying to get into the tray. And this is your first experience with the game. The reason I kind of try and unbox it based off of, you know, the logical order of things is if anybody gets the game, I've not played it, I've not read the rule book, so regardless of how good your rule book is or how good your game is, this is my first experience with the game. My first interaction with the game upon opening it up is getting tape stuck to my fingers and having to untape 2, 4, 6, 8 different multiple piles of tape. That's not a great experience for any consumer. Okay, this, it's fine. Notice there's not crackling. It's not the thickest I've had. It's not the thinnest. The walls are less sturdy than I feel this is. I feel like the lid is a little bit more sturdy than the walls. But, that, you know, again, there's just this vast area here without it. But overall, I'm fine with that. Just not the tape. Okay. So now we have some minis. You can see there is some oddity when it comes to like the depth here because these guys are really big. That's fine. I think that's okay to have a half tray like this. And it seems to fit okay because it does kind of slide in to, I'll show you, this right here. This kind of slides in, right there. So right on the edge here. So it's not like an exact slide, but in that it looks like there is a little bit of, you know, wiggle room, right? So that's because you're actually a tray on a tray here. So there's a little bit of wiggle room there, as you can see right there. See, as it kind of moves, it's blocked by here, but there's not a whole lot's blocking it here, except for the ridge here, which isn't exact, right? So it can move that way, as you can see. Now, when it's in the box, that's fine. When it's out of the box, there is a slide there. Okay. But let's go and look at that. They did add a secondary lid here. They don't always do that. I do appreciate that. Sometimes they just hope that this will hold it. In this case, it does not. It would have been nice, I think, to have this has its own lid, so you don't have the issue where they're just loose otherwise. Okay, let's finish looking at the storage solution, and then we'll go from there. So like this, you see how this has its own lid? So I can carry this around a little bit easier than this. This I have to be careful of. If I trip while holding this, it's a mess. When I trip while holding this, it's gonna be a mess anyway because it's not locked on, but whatever. And then there's another lid here that I think is also taped in separately. Yes, awesome, great, wonderful. Oh, wait, no. It's because it's not, it's like a, so see, this lid here goes all the way around because it has the side. This one doesn't because there is no side here for it to go down on. Now they could have put 3 sides, right, and just not done the fourth. But in this case, they just kind of cut it to and vacuumed it to form. And also, they put like a hair dryer, like we put on like Easter eggs, you know, to like wrap it to form it. Which I mean, it works. Okay, so that's that. I'm gonna finish looking at the other components, and then we'll look at the minis, and then we'll look at the other boxes. But I wanted to look at that storage thing, because again, that's your first experience. This is exactly how you would unbox it yourself. So that is that. Okay, it looks like it fit on quite nicely. Let's push this to the side. Oof! And take a look here. Look, I still got like wrapper stuff on here. Ugh. Oh, and by the way, that is an improvement. I know people like to not mention things, but this is Massive Darkness 1. This tray. Excuse the semi-painted minis, and look, it is what it is. Okay, and notice crinkier. It's crinkly, right? So it's loud, it's flimsy, and there's no lid. It had a tray on top of it, and that's pretty much all you got. And there's people that, and maybe he's not even put in the right spot. I don't know. Don't judge me. It's been a long time. Anyway, yeah, better than season 1. Okay, we got some bags here. These are very cheap bags. These are not cloth, that is for sure. This is kind of an overall this is something you get for free, from some company that just wants to give you an advertisement. The artwork is awesome. I do appreciate that. And it looks like this one actually states Rogue, and this one has a lock, so because the Rogue has a bag mechanic. I do like that it's big, so I can actually stick my hand in there. Sometimes you get these bags, and you have to like your fingers can fit in there. You have to like try and dig, so then you're like trying to like push it up to grab the piece, and it's all meant. I like that I can stick my whole hand in the bag. If you're gonna give me a bag, make it to where I can actually stick my hand and grab stuff in there. I do appreciate that. It's not rounded, so sometimes tokens can get in the corners, but overall fine. Though the quality is kind of to say the least. It doesn't feel premium, if that makes sense. But I'm glad they supplied them. Okay, we do have trays here, and this is like tight too. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna take them all out because I need to see what's underneath them. So, and we'll compare them to the first one, obviously, as well. I did like that I was able to use this to lift up on them. That was helpful. They seem pretty good. You can see where they clipped them off of the kind of the sprue itself that held these. So in other words, there'll actually be a piece, just like a sprue that connects here and maybe has, 4 of them on a tray or something like that. It looks like they're probably literally just like this, right? It's kind of how they are, because I'm not seeing any on the sides. So it might just be a pair of 2, and that's it. It's like this is a sheet right here. I will say, and I'm seeing this on all of them, there is a strain bit, a little bit right here. And maybe, there, you should be able to see that in the reflection, right? So for whatever reason, and maybe when it came to taking these off, right? Maybe that's where a clamp was or something, or for whatever reason, there's a slight strain here. These plastics, when they are strained, you can see it a little bit right here as well, will turn white, right? So you'll see that if you ever bend anything. Speaking of bend, let's actually see if these are bent, because I fear that they might be. Just gonna put them opposite, all right? Because that'll show any bend. We'll put them flat on the table as well. Trying to line it up here. Okay, so that's up, and you will see I am holding this kind of together, and you see how they're splaying out that way. And then if I hold it this way, let's see if there's any. Doesn't like there's nearly as much, and it might just maybe a little bit, right? And it could just be it kind of moving this side. So let's go ahead and put it flat. Do you hear that? That's because it's not quite even. There is a lip right here. Do you see that? Look, I can put this underneath, and it literally doesn't. This is not moving it at all because there's a lip here. Okay, so and that's just on that side. I imagine it's opposite on the other side. It looks like it may just be lifted up here, but this is definitely not quite straight. Let's compare that to Massive Darkness 1, because why not? I got both here. Different color. I can tell you that much. This one's dusty. Come on. Okay, yeah, it's a little bit better. So different color, obviously, smaller. This one, it looks like also has that a little bit of, I can't quite fit this under. But if I press down on this side, I think I still couldn't quite. It's a lot less, but it's also not as big, right? So it's a lot less prone to that. The smaller it is, obviously, the better it'll fit there. These look pretty standard. These have little bits to get the card out. These do not. Instead, they have these little ramps. And they did the ramp, I think, on both sides here. Maybe a little bit steeper, but it's definitely there. I don't see any strain marks there. Often you can see it on the back as well. So on the back here, as you can see, no strain marks at all, at least on this one. If you look on the back here, yeah, so see, you can see those marks, whereas it's a little bit strained. You can see that there as well. And I saw all these on the front as well. So there will be little impressions like that. That's normal. That's fine. But these abnormal ones are kind of different. Come On Global Limited is what they're calling themselves there. And I don't know if there's anything on the back here. No, and then they didn't mark the bottom of this at all. Okay, so kind of interesting. This also just kind of slides into the little ridge here, whereas these slid in by having these little pegs go into these little holes into each other. So they lock a little bit more than this, which just kind of fits a little bit, but then is otherwise kind of loose. Not a whole lot, and it still kind of fits, but you can separate them kind of easily too. And again, I'm going through this in the minutia a lot. The symbols here are a little bit different, right? This has a full surrounding, where this only has a half surrounding. So kind of interesting to see that. And it looks like the armor set changed from what looks to be like one of those padded undershirts they put underneath armor so you didn't like chafe and stuff, to the actual armor itself. If you ask me, I think that's kind of what they're going for there. And they obviously added, rings and whatnot as well. They do have the XP, and the XP, interestingly, still has the surrounding. So this surrounding matches these, whereas this one is kind of unique, where this has a surrounding and then these do not have a full surrounding. This is the only one that does. Kind of neat to see that there. The Massive Darkness symbol itself looks to be fairly close to the kind of original when it comes to the design, but it's a little bit fancier here on the bottom, right? Instead of the same thing there, it's now kind of more rigid with the two. But I think it's really the only difference there. The pegs look fine. There's obviously, like, this isn't labeled here as much as something like this. I don't know if it is micro XP or what's going on there. Looks like this is the micro XP. It goes up to 9 and then you level up there. All right, I've said a lot about that though, so let's go ahead and move on from that. If you wanted an unboxing of both, but you can see the differences, right? These are years apart at this point, like many years apart. So it's kind of interesting to see where Come On is now, see how much they've progressed, or if they've progressed, or if they're kind of staying stagnant and about the same. And I cannot lift this for the life of me. Thank goodness for that. Thank you, Come On. That was almost getting embarrassing. Okay, so now on the bottom we have a black tray. I don't know why they decide between black and not. I appreciate the black trays more because they, I can see the shape of it more. When one of these are in, see again, there's no lid to like keep it locked in so it starts coming off. When these are empty, it just looks like it's hard to define what shape this is versus this shape. Whereas when it's black, you can often see the shape a little bit better. All right, let's compare the game boards. Yes, I have some game boards from Massive Darkness 1 to compare to. We'll look at some cards, and we'll look at some minis. Then a whole bunch more boxes to go through. All right, I hope your guys' day is doing great. I don't know how many of you are still watching at this point in the video, but if you are, I do hope so. We're going to be spending some time together by the sounds of it. Just based off the pace I'm having here. But I love it. I love showing these things off to you guys and talking through all this. And it's kind of cool to compare, especially to my first Kickstarter I ever got compared to what I've done now. So I am, I think, maybe seeing some slight curvature, but sometimes it can be an illusion here. So looking at it, very stark difference between shadow and not. It's very obvious which ones are in shadow, which ones are not. You get that little bit of a tint here, right, where it kind of helps show that, okay, there's some light there, so it's not super rigid. It does make these always look more rigid game piece wise, right, because the light just suddenly stops there. There is a distinct difference between this line. Sometimes blending that can help a little bit. I think Bard's Song did quite well in that. It works light on light, but light to dark, it definitely makes it feel blocky. But every room is a square anyway. They don't really try to do any kind of fanciness there. So it's very much an artificial map in that sense. Additionally, I don't know if you noticed this or not, but at least from what I'm looking at here, most things are kind of squarish, right? We got square boxes here, square table here, square benches here. We got the kind of the square torches. We got the square wagons. We got kind of a, even this is like kind of square-ish, right? And this is kind of square-ish. Everything just seems a little blocky per se when it comes to that kind of stuff, right? It's square, square. But there's some other interesting stuff too. I think this looks better than Massive Darkness. Oh boy, we'll look at that in a second. Massive Darkness 1, because of all this little stuff here, I feel like that wasn't really a thing in the first one as much. This looks better, especially with like the drawings on the floor and stuff like that. But you can see kind of the blockiness I'm talking about there. Let's flip it over a little bit. Take a look at some color. This will feel fundamentally different to play on, right, than this. If you did a mission here, you did a mission here, this just feels different. Instead, it's like these gems that are glowing, and then you have the glow kind of outside, and it looks like faces and eyes and stuff like that, which is kind of cool. I dig that. It definitely changes the feel of things there. It looks like this is like not like an empty floor, like then it goes down, you can see the eyes underneath and stuff like that, and some smoke and fog. I was combining those words apparently. So that's cool. I see, look at this kind of stuff. This is cool. I really dig it. That looks nice. I don't feel like they do a great job of depth. Like, again, I just unboxed Conan, so comparing this, they are doing the drop shadow, right? They are doing the kind of thing that makes it look like it's going down. But Conan does that really well when it comes to, you're looking at an overhead map versus this. All right, let's see. There are labels on each corner. I appreciate that, actually. And they change the color based on what it is. So it's not stark, right? If this is yellow, this is yellow. If this is kind of a light blue gray, this is light blue gray. Let's look at a Massive Darkness 1 tile. All right, so here is Massive Darkness 1, and you can see they did the same thing here, right? It's a little bit different in that this is just a number and a letter versus, kind of a letter and then a number and then a letter as well. So this is like A1A, and I'm not sure what the big deal there is. The torches, again, are much more pronounced. And as you can see, this darkens. So do you see how this light bleeds over here a little bit? They have these kind of artificial lines, but this, I think, looks far more natural than this, where the light just stops, right? There's just no continuation here. It's stopped. And notice how much more prominent the fire is. I think I think they wanted it to be more obvious, though I don't think anybody was necessarily confused. They see that little bit of lightness, right? It looks like it does stop here. They're not super uniform with it. A little bit of lightness there, but just a tad little bit. See that little bit of light helps out so much, I feel. And then this, I think they did an even better job of that. So I actually prefer this over this style. I think if they were really concerned about it, making the torches with the fire bigger would have sufficed. I don't think they needed to make this absolute contrast where there is zero light spilling out. Now, again, it looks like here they actually did a little bit, but in a lot of these, it is just a solid line. And you see that, again, like there is nothing coming from here. This is a block all of its own. This is a block all of its own. And when you compare that to something like this, I feel like that's a big difference there. And honestly, I don't know who they were really trying to help with that. If we flip it over on the side, you can see, again, that spilling out there. And it looks like, I don't remember this map tile, but these guys did not end up well. There was some fighting going on there. So I take back what I said about a whole bunch of stuff in there. It's been a long time since I've played. But again, like, it's very noticeable. Notice they even put double lights in some areas to really brighten it up, and some only had one. And at least as from what I've seen here, I've only seen one light per room, kind of no matter what, whether it's gems or otherwise. So I don't know, it just doesn't look. And see, this is cool. So this is another kind of light system, and this one is more of a blue brightness here. So I'm assuming, are these lit up because it's the same brightness? Maybe you can even go in here, so it doesn't matter. I feel like you could probably go in there. And this is a 2, so this one does have 2 lights, and each light is just fundamentally making less light than the one over here, right? Because it's pretty much just as bright, but with 2 versus 1. Kind of interesting, right? And then again here, you can clearly see the lava stuff, and they did, at least here, put a little bit of glow. So it just seems haphazard, right? Like, I don't understand why sometimes they would do that, sometimes they wouldn't. Okay, let's look to see if it's bowed, and then we will look at the quality here. So let's go ahead and separate. And yes, which is fairly common, but you can see that distinct line here where these are now curved this way and other ones are now curved the other way, just a little bit. And let's go ahead, put it over here. And you can kind of see, holding it in this corner, you're getting a much bigger gap over here. And then on the sides, the same kind of thing, right? So definitely bowed slightly, but I bet on the table it's not too bad. There's not a whole lot of like bumping or anything like that. There are some that really get a wobble. Now, some, once you unwrap it, you know, it's gonna get really exposed to moisture or something like that and really start flexing. So I'll let you guys know if that changes, but for now it's fine. Looking at the cardboard quality, it looks like it's the exact same scenario as the cardboard, like the little cardboard tokens. So if you look here, now this is a untouched, really, Massive Darkness 2 tile right here. And this is a heavily used Massive Darkness 1 tile where I've played all the scenarios, right? And some more than once even. And so you can see both have this kind of split, but again, this one's been used a lot. So you got to keep that in mind. This is after heavy use. This is after zero use. This is just raw unpacking. And you can see the lines, of course. I've already kind of mentioned that. Oh, come on, let's focus. There, I'll put my hand farther up. You can see the lines here, I think, much easier. Let me zoom in actually even more, just so you can really see. There you go. Hopefully you can see that. Anyway, you can see the lines here more than this. This is just more compressed, right? It's the same thing. It's the same concept. It's the same technology. You see how smooth this is compared to this? Like, hopefully you can see the difference there. This, if it focuses, looks and feels smooth, almost like one piece. This is not smooth and is rough, and I can feel, I don't know if you can even hear that or not. Probably not, because my editing will kind of think it's just background noise, but very smooth, almost no sound at all, no vibrations on this as I rub it back and forth. This, I can feel it. I can feel how rough it is. I can hear how rough it is. So yeah, definitely worse job on the cardboard when it comes to just overall feel, which inherently we're buying this stuff, right? So if you start doing this, you can see what happens here, right? They does start to split on the first one. And on the second one, I imagine it'll be the same story, where over time, it'll just flip and kind of pull away as you play with it. But feel-wise, this feels very nice. And this does not, which I believe was the first comment I made. This is very rough, actually. Like, this is, I feel like I could give myself a burn by doing this too fast. This, I don't think I really could nearly as easily. It's much more smooth. So this is a baby's bottom. This is an adult man's bottom. Okay, there's a big... If you've made it this far in the video, I'm sorry. I think you get what I mean. All right, let's put that up. That is enough cardboard. Dear Lord, would you shut up about that? Yeah, I can do that. Let's look, and it's like raw on the bottom, by the way. I don't know if you noticed it or not, but there's zero padding there, so luckily it didn't get crushed. It just fits right down there. Very efficient, I suppose, in that. Let's look at some dice. Guess what? I got some Master Darkness 1 dice. Because, of course, I do. There, one of every kind. Okay, and notice there's definitely a difference in this. This is the enemy's dice, so when you attack them, you roll these with them, and they attack you back with dark magic, even if at range. That was kind of one of my gripes. I don't know how it'll play out, but at the time of the Kickstarter, I didn't feel like it paid to be in a ranged character, because you were typically weaker, but the enemies could always attack you back as if you were in melee anyway, so it's kind of like, well, whatever. But let's go ahead. And I'm just going to actually take one. These are a little bit tighter, so I'm just going to take one of each. And then just look in the bag on the other ones, just to see if there's any kind of print issues that I noticed right away. In which case, let's do that now and get it out of the way. I don't really see anything right now. There is a little bit. Ooh, where's my pointy thing? Let me actually zoom in slightly. Boop, 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 boop. Okay. So here you can kind of see there's a little bit of a mark here, right, where the white didn't go up, right, all the way. Or there's some kind of chip in the impression or something like that. I doubt it's an impression thing, or I'd see it on all of them though. That's that. Take a look at the blue. Oh, and purple. Okay, so that right there, I can tell you one thing, I did not notice the difference there. So if I'm ever rolling these, I mean, it's fine. But for whatever reason, do you see how different these are? Now, again, I'm slightly colorblind in all colors, but I struggle more with blues and oranges, coincidentally. These are very obviously different colors, right? These are very obviously not as nearly as different. I mean, look at the difference here. Even look at the blue, right, versus the yellow is fairly the same, but this one is more orange. And these blues, this one is like a sky blue. This one is not. Like, for whatever reason, they decided to make the colors closer, not farther apart. And I don't like that. I can tell you that right now. Right now, you are seeing this in lighting you will never play a game in. Like, I would never play a game in this. It would hurt my head after a while. I can get a headache after filming these sometimes because I have a lot of light pumping in on this. A lot. And that's not how you play board games. You play board games in a game room or in your dining room. Either way, it's not like super lit like this. It's not like you need to make a makeup tutorial where you unbox board games and play them typically. So, FYI, it'll look better on screen than it does in person when it comes to color differences and stuff like that. That and with, post-processing stuff like that, sometimes the colors will pop a little bit more than natural. This is interesting as well. Do you see all the scratches on here? Maybe you can see that. But there is like some real heavy duty scratches. And here, like, okay, so this is a normal side. I am scratching it. Here is the scratch side. And all I'm doing is this right here. This is like scuffed up, like bad. Like, do you hear that? I've never gotten a dice like this from any game, actually, that was like this scuffed. Like, that just, it's unfortunate. I don't think any others are, but it's just one side even, too, so it's kind of hard to tell kind of what the scope of that is. Otherwise, I mean, the white looks fairly good. This often happens with like a blue or something like that, where I feel like one more coat of white would have helped. This is a blue tinted white. You can still see a little bit of that white through. It's a little bit transparent, not quite opaque enough. But overall, it looks good. Look at the black and red. I appreciate black and red, though and luckily the symbols here I think are big enough. Oftentimes, I think white and red pop more. Sometimes darker red doesn't quite show up as good. And this lighting, it's fine. And the symbols are big enough to where I think that's fine as well. So, but yeah, definitely more matte. You see how much more glossy this is, right? So this one is much shinier than this. So, and that's probably personal preference. Though I feel like this feels smoother than this. Very close on that. So I'm not beholden to that. All right, that's dice. Let's look at cards and the minis. Just a quick shout out. They do have the pegs. They do have these. These are the hard plastic, so they will scuff up and break your painting on the base rims. I prefer the silicone ones myself. And these are actually quite nice pegs that you can grip very nicely because they're curved. They have a little bit of a divot for your fingers to kind of pin in. That can help pulling them out a little bit and create a little gap where you can put your fingers. So much appreciated. Those look nice. I'm not going to unbox them though. I think that's pretty obvious in an explanation. All right, we got cards here. We got cards here. Cards here. And cards here. I'm not going to unbox them all. Don't worry. You're not going to see something silly like that. That's a big stack of them right there. That's big. We'll go with the big ones first though here. The big cards, not the big stack. But really what I'm looking for here is like color, especially color consistency, the feel of the cards, the thickness, illegibility, right? Stuff like that. The backs of the cards, I didn't comment before, but these are fine. That being said, again, it's fairly close. I can see the difference. Okay, so don't go thinking I'm seeing in black and white here. I can tell that this is kind of an orangish brownish, and this is pretty much a straight red. This is almost like an apple red. I actually dig how dark of a red this is. I prefer that over like a sports car red, which I think is too bright. But there is not an inherently huge difference from here. And if I was like 4 feet away and it's on the other side of the table and I'm playing in a game room with one light above the table, and I'm not saying that that's ideal, but that's like real world situations. I would take more care in making sure these are quite well seen differently. Obviously, you can read these as different, right? So that's fine. But just color-wise, just at a glance, right? If I'm quickly having a, whatever, and I'm not reading that, I might mistake one for the other, especially when they're not paired directly side by side, right? If there's a big difference between the two, it just take care to make it different. I guess what I'm saying there, it doesn't cost you anything. I feel, and it helps a lot. I have this comment with core space. I know I'm about to get yelled at by my patrons, but I find it very drab in color, and so it can be hard to distinct, like just the different components on there, or what's important and what's not. What am I supposed to be looking at? I mean, like, look at that. I mean, that's very different, right? So it looks like these are the heroes, and yeah, otherwise pretty okay. This has a full frame. This doesn't have a full frame. This doesn't have a thing here. I mean, it's fine. I think it's consistent enough. It looks okay. On the back is just art. Cut off at the waist, so it can semi-help painters to see stuff like this, but not when it comes to below wherever you cut it off at. For the heroes, they are coming out of the frame, which is fun. I appreciate that kind of breaking of the frame. It gives it a little bit more agency, a little bit more action, and they do look like they're fairly action shots, which is nice as well. So they do have the symbols here, and they're not a whole lot to move or read, which is nice. The text is perhaps a little smaller than it needed to be. I feel like you could have made this a little bit bigger and it would have been fine. There is a little bit of an overlap issue here, perhaps, though perhaps even just moving it to the side a little bit. Again, just focus on legibility. Plenty of gamers are of an older age and cannot quite see as well. So when you get poor lighting, when you get smaller words, can sometimes be a little difficult. Also, I think to keep it in theme, they went with a dark brown here versus a black and kind of a tan, but the dark brown and tan is inherently closer than a black and white or something like that. Now, I'm not saying I want, super contrast, but the bold helps, but that +1, like if I will see that on my table, right? But if I'm looking at my, my buddy who's this ranger, I'm not going to be able to see the +1 MP. That's just not happening. I'm going to rely on him to tell me if I'm trying to like organize or kind of work together. And that's fine to do naturally, but if you're forced to do it because you can't see something, I think that's where it's worth noting. But the art style, I actually quite like on this. I think it's fine. Again, all the characters look cool. Okay. Here. And it looks like, I almost want to say, trying to see if this is a different font than this. This plus just looks really skinny to me, right? And maybe not. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. So, see, what I'm looking at here is, do you see how skinny this plus is? I feel this is skinnier than even the line in the one. In other words, this is a even skinnier line than the line here, right? Or the line here. But then looking up here and you see the plus here, now it's a very tiny plus, which again, you're not going to see unless it's yours. And even then sometimes if you lean down, but is obviously a different size, which I think is fine. You'll change things and whatnot. But it seems stylized, like unless it's just me. And again, maybe you're probably seeing this on like some huge screen versus me. That plus and that plus seem a different font. And I think it is. I really do. Like, yeah, because see the M here and the M here, it's a fundamentally different font. So one's easier to read than another. This plus is actually easier than this one. This one is thicker lines, but they're very small and they don't really go across each other as long. This one goes across each other long, but it's skinny. It just, that sort of kind of, I don't know, oddity in design is something I note consistency-wise in a lot of games. Kabana's is not alone in that, but it can certainly be difficult. They're also doing this kind of gradient, which just makes it harder to read below than on top. I don't know what really that's adding for me. You didn't do it here, so I don't know why you wouldn't do it. Like, I don't know why you wanted this to have less contrast than this. Like, what is the motivation there? What is the gain for that? Does it just look nicer to lower contrast? I don't know. It seems odd. Not a whole lot of text on these cards. The symbols are nice. They are in color and they are fairly big, so you can kind of see that nicely. And again, I do appreciate, there's almost too much space, right? But I like the common border size, so that works as well. So a lot of those, I'm not going to be bothered like reading them or anything like that. We've got some enemies here. Still all fairly dark, right? So at least all of these, it's very dark, which works when they're bright, right? Not quite as much when they're not bright. So like, for instance, I can see his wings, those stand out really good, especially, really like, okay, I can try and simulate a little bit. So it's kind of like looking at it like this, okay? So you are literally right where kind of my head is. So you are seeing exactly how I would see it on the table almost right in front of me. But now put it over here. Right? Do you see the difference? It's hard to even see what enemy that is. I can see Fallen Angels because the name is clear, but art-wise, I don't see this. It's black on dark, right? It's like there's just for something that I felt was kind of bright. The background is so dark, and there's not like there's a little bit of red outlining here. It's just not enough. I can't really see that, right? I mean, it's just not enough, right? Like I'm supposed to be fighting, and I'm trying to figure out who has 2 health, right, or whatever. And so let me get the other guys out. Let me show you kind of what I'm talking about. Okay, so I need to figure out which enemy is which, and again, this is actually only halfway. If I had a game table and it was up there, it'd be off screen still, and this is a small table. So anyway, just kind of odd, I guess. I don't know why the contrast is so low on that. And it's just different versions of those. This fire elemental probably pops out probably the most, but that's that. Okay, so put those aside. We're gonna look quickly. I'm gonna make a comment on these, and that's that I just feel like this looks almost like a Roman game or something like that. I think it may be the design that's almost kind of mosaic a little bit, but it doesn't really seem fantasy to me. Like if I was playing a game where I'm like trying to fight with Julius Caesar, I feel like the symbology and all that kind of matches. So that's a little odd. A little odd when fighting like demons and dragons and stuff like that. And a fairly muted color, right? That's not like a bright color or a very strong color, if that makes sense. It's quiet down, knife. My opinion here. Now this is just going to explode. It's such a big stack of cards here. So again, yeah, sleeving kind of out of the question here, and I'm not going to look at all of them, but you can see the armor here. I think I like the text there. That's pretty good. You can see the item. It's cut off oftentimes, but I'm fine with that. It just makes it closer to the camera. But overall, I said fairly centered. That's fairly centered. But yeah, the armor looks fine. They look cool. Nothing looks standoutish, like, oh my gosh, what is that item? That is an amazing piece of item, and maybe I need to like go farther in, right? But I mean, this commander shield doesn't look inherently stronger. It says rare treasure, or I mean these are just some Donkey Kong drums, right? I mean, that's a rare treasure. So nothing is like over the top when it comes to fantasy and stuff like that. Like that honestly looks kind of cooler than a lot of the other stuff, but I do like the color differences there, and overall I think those are fine. Again, I don't really have too much comment on that. There's a few symbols and stuff like that. Again, we got some small pluses and very small symbol here, and then a lot of wasted space. To be honest, I feel this should be higher. And again, just focus on usability. I don't just have to look at this game, I have to use this game. Right? These are all game components. And so if you sacrifice usability for looks, that is something you have to keep in mind. Okay, now looking at these cards. I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. So if these are here, I think they want me to, hold on. I think what they want is this. I think that's what they want, maybe. No, because then there's like, do they want it like this? How do they want these cards to even be? I don't even know. I don't know. Like, I have, I don't know, maybe just, I guess, like that, and they're just, maybe like this. Here we go. Got it. I got it, guys. Don't worry about it. All right, moving on. More cards. Let's look at some minis. All right, so again, picking this up without a locking lid. Hopefully you can see the lift up here, right? If you grab it, the side is pretty good, but you can't just casually grab this and put it in there. You're gonna have to be very careful. Again, you don't want to spill minis. Not the worst by far, not the best. If that makes sense. Kind of middle ground there. Some pros, some cons, just like everything, right? Let's take a look. I'm not sure inverse this, at least for now. This is an odd. There we go. There. Okay. Hard to place that. All right, and then we're going to zoom in. All right, so this guy here, first of all, visually, shape-wise, outline-wise, looks really cool. I think he looks very neat. I like that he's numbered. That's helpful. The base size is fairly small. It is slightly bent. If you can hear that, but you can probably see him moving a little bit, right? You can almost like move him like one of those frogs for the same reason. The smoke coming out of him or the fire coming out of him, I think is very cool. I dig that. I think when he's painted, he would look very neat. In gray, I can't see his face. You can slightly make out his eyes. I guess if you look, you're like, I think that's probably some eyes, but it looks mostly just like a general shape. And then the face kind of blends into it. Now, again, painted, you'll see that easily. Gray, how the vast majority of people will actually play. Sorry to say that to all the painters, but we are the minority when it comes to that. You won't see a face. I like how he's leaning backwards. I think that's kind of interesting. It's an interesting take. It's not very menacing. It kind of reminds me of the Egg Knight from Kingdoms Forlorn, which is also another goofy game where there's a little sense of humor to it. So a guy that almost seems to be a little thick in the stomach, just a little bit, to be leaning backwards, belly out, while not very scary, is, certainly different. The blades, I don't really care for. They're not ABS at all, and this is already kind of bent, so we'll have to fix that a little bit. They are kind of cut off, so they're not a very sharp point. I'm assuming that's on purpose, but it almost looks like it's not supposed to. Like, it looks like it's been cut off here. Like, do you see the issue there? Like, and maybe, let me get another one and just check real quick. Like, is that supposed to, oh, you're not the same. Yeah, so it just looks like the blade just kind of stops. Right? Almost like the tip was cut off. And I'm wondering if it was, to be honest. And I say that because it looks to me like it matches perfectly with the base, right? Where it's like, this is like a flat part here, right? And it just cut off the tip a little bit. But then this is kind of rounded, but it still comes to a tip more than this, my opinion. And again, you can kind of see that because this is the cheap PVC plastic, and I mean, I can bend this by hand. This small thing I can bend by hand. So it's a very soft plastic, right? It's very, very bendy. Now that's usable, and I'm probably going to break off right here. It's more robust, but it bends out. So when they extract it, when they take it out, and when they inject it, and all that pressure goes into it, you see how it's the reason this is warped because it's lifting up here on this foot. Right? It's almost like if you did this or did this and then try to pull it out, right? You're going to get that little bit of a lift here as it lifts into that foot. Right, and that's again just from the manufacturing process, the fact that they were maybe doing it a little too quick, a little too rough, it wasn't heated up properly, the plastic, I mean, there's a lot of variables and skill based in that, but I would say that this is not a good look, and this is an issue I've seen for years in certain games, but I haven't seen it in a while. For the most part, other manufacturers are not doing this. Other games don't have this lift in the leg. And if it happened here, I guarantee it's going to happen in quite a few of these other ones. So some oddities for sure when it comes to the design choice. But fundamentally, again, you're looking at it huge. If you're looking at this on the TV, this thing is massive. This thing is that big, guys. Okay, this guy is like way the freak over here. I don't see a face. And typically that is the highlight of a miniature. Now I think, again, painted, it would look great, but it doesn't come painted. It comes gray. Most people will see it as gray. And we should keep that in mind when designing minis. All right, next up we have this guy here. So hunched over the other way, multi-piece. You can see it was made here and here. The assembly I don't think was necessarily the best here when it comes to hiding it. I just feel like that's a little bit of an obvious scam, but it could just be also here in the wings, right? But it could also just be the brightness of the plastic. This is a brighter plastic, and so you got to keep that in mind. If I take an enemy from the first one, you can see the difference here. You want to know why he's slightly shiny and why he's not? Because the quality of the mini has actually gone down. This is cheaper than this. Now, sculpt-wise, no, right? Because this needed assembly and this is flat. But quality-wise, it has taken a turn for the worst. This is shiny because there's an ABS mixed into that. That is what makes it shiny. ABS is shiny and PVC is matte. That's how you can tell the difference by and large. They manufacture the exact same way, And so you can actually mix the plastics together. We do this in 3D printing too, where sometimes you'll get a very expensive, very strong, very resilient resin. You don't print directly in that. That's expensive, just like using ABS or something like even like HIPS, which is made a little bit different. So instead, you just mix a little bit of it in, and it adds a little bit of shine, but it also makes it that much stronger, so that when you get a blade, it can actually be quite skinny instead of very thick. This is thick because it's PVC, because it would just be a flimsy, floppy sword if it wasn't. This is skinny and actually has a fairly legit point to it because the quality of the plastic is better. This is a better quality product. Notice also the bases. You can see a little bit of a lift here, and I don't see any lift here. Now, might not be the best mini for this, just because he's so big on that, but I just literally grabbed this guy, and you can see the quality difference. And again, a lot of that is that shiny. That's not a release agent, right? That is actually just inherently a shinier plastic, a different kind of plastic, and they feel different too. They feel very different from one another. This feels soft. This almost feels like I can squish his face right now. Like, no joke, it feels almost like I'm giving a little bit of give, because I probably am. Whereas I could squeeze this all day long and it feels like glass in between my fingers because nothing is giving. His little ear here, nothing. He does not care. So yeah, inherently worse product because of it. Notice the hand difference too. Now again, I know they're not the same, but do you see one is more heroic scale, which means bigger heads, bigger hands? They used to do that back in the day because quality of the plastic wasn't good. Quality of the manufacturing wasn't good. So they had it in large pieces like that. Otherwise it wouldn't look good. It would be weak. Whereas here, notice he's covering his entire handle with that. Notice the handle's coming out the back there. That's because of that ABS. It's because of the better plastic. Notice the hand is much smaller. It's not so cartoonishly large. Notice his head is not cartoonishly large. That is not just a design art choice. That is a choice because of the end result, the plastic here, right? Notice the little nibs, like either his ear or these like little things here. And then look at how big of a thing here they have in the shield, because they have to enlarge everything. This has his ears, horn things have to be extra thick because of that. The skinniest we get are these wings, which are still not as skinny as this sword goes, nor as long. And in my opinion, the detail not nearly as good as like the crease in his sword, or I think that's actually for like blood to like drain or something like that, so it keeps the sword clean. But anyway, notice, I mean, again, the detail level isn't quite there. It just looks softer. Everything is softer and less crisp. The teeth there, you see how it kind of blends in? I'm using this to point now. Anyway, you see how there's a fairly good difference here, right? This one came out good. Notice it's a little bit softer here. Notice it's a little bit blending there, right? It's not quite, I'll let you get even closer. Do you see how the tooth, there's not a hard line necessarily between the tooth and the gum, or how soft that hair is. And then again, compare that to that. Kamon's miniature quality has gone down, not up, and it continues to go down, sadly. But that's kind of my thoughts on this. Design-wise, I think he's neat. I think he's cool. This right here is a melt. Oh, dear God. How did I not see that? Look at this, guys. What in God's name happened here? What is, like, why is he melting? Is he near lava? Should there be lava in this? Look, it just, I don't understand. Look at this. It's right near the moldine, and where the moldine is, there's a big old pit runner thing here. But look at this. There's no line between his tail and his foot. It's just, he's like half mermaid. It's like some freakish Cthulhu crap going on here, where he's like worms out at the end. There's some weird tentacle demon thing going on here. Are they all like that? Did they mess up this entire... They did. Look at that. This is the core box. This is the minis you're giving everybody. This was the core box. This is the minis they were giving us. Why are we paying more for less? Oh, dear Lord. Hopefully they get better than that. That's a disappointment. Here, this is probably close, right? So this is pretty comparable, right? When it comes to like style, right? I think so. I think that's pretty good there. So, and in fact, you can tell that I want to say this might have a little bit of ABS there. And the reason I'm saying that, and especially this right here, I think is pure ABS. You can see that this is shinier. Do you see that? This is ABS. Shinier than this. Often you can also see there's because it's a harder plastic, it needs more cleanup. So when they clip it off, you'll get these little things. So this is 100%, I know this is ABS. And again, you can see that difference in shininess compared, right? And again, if you take it to him here, do you see the difference in plastic? Hopefully you can see that. It's very different. And in fact, notice this guy is very different too. And he's a little bit shinier. I wonder if they actually put more in there to get the detail up. I would honestly be curious in that. Either way, this definitely ABS. And that's good. I'm glad they're paying for separate pieces. It would be this whole arm, by the way. So this whole thing is ABS. And that's why it's separate there. That's why it's different. It's not just a pull direction or anything like that. It's because this is long and skinny. Now, it wasn't quite angled super well, so there's a little bit of a slot there that it didn't quite go in and, you know, whatever. But it's quite nice. And notice this gap here, right? And it's not droopy either. And that's why I think there might be a little bit of ABS even mixed into there. And that's why you're seeing a little bit of shininess. That's why you're seeing a much better mold line, right? It's not destroying the Mini or anything like that. It has a really good adhesion. It's taking up pretty much all of the base. This is fundamentally a better Mini when it comes to that. Now, there is still that issue, right? That is still a thing, right? But yeah, better, for sure. For sure. I like them. I also love the design. I love the chains. The spikes look cool. The boils on the skin look nice. The robe is super cool. I think this scabbard getting in there, if it's okay, there's a little bit of kind of, this doesn't make any logical sense physics-wise why it would bulge out to meet that. And I feel like that line is kind of crap. But besides this area here, which is, honestly, I mean, again, that's another mold line. So it's the same kind of issue as this, right? So you're seeing that on now 2 Minis, where it just, like, all the detail just kind of turns to mush, right? Did you see? Where's the end? Where's the end of that scabbard? Where's the end of that? You tell me, because it's just flat. There's just nothing here. That's so bad. What the heck? I can see why they removed the word miniature from their name and the word cool. It's just unfortunate to see them fall so far. This looks awesome. Look at this. Sculpt design wise, I love this. I love that it doesn't look like somebody just ran and ZBrush a texture, you know, brush, that they actually sculpted this, that it actually is kind of grouped and billowed and has texture. And I love all of that. I think that's great. You will notice a little bit of softness in the detail where it meets the base. And again, it's because they're just kind of all one piece like this, right? And so where it meets, it gets a little soft, which is almost the opposite of what you want. You want that line nice and crisp. This looks good though. I like that it kind of went in there. And now it helps that he's a skeleton, but he does go kind of straight back, right? Because if he had a little bit of a bulge here that didn't match there, you would have some negative space. So this is important that it just kind of goes straight back there. And that's why, do you see how like flat here? So do you see how flat this goes across right here? So right here, it just goes boop, just straight back. There is zero bulge around. See the front, this kneecap thing, right? You would think there'd be a lump here on this side, just kind of like that, but it's not. It goes straight back like it was cut. And that's exactly why, because it can't bulge and then go in like that, right? Because what would happen is you have the Mini like this, and there would be steel mold there, and you couldn't depan it, right? And maybe it's like this. Either way, it kind of locks in there and you can't do it, right? If there's a gap between that, you can't extract the Mini. So they have to do that for extraction. And it works okay because he's a skeleton, thankfully. But it does look a little silly to see. It looks like it was just sliced, right? Just completely flat. Everything flattens out on these sides, right? All the like do you see the bulge here? Notice there's no bulge here. Do you see? I mean, that's exactly what I'm talking about. There's a ridge right here. There is no ridge here. It's completely smoothed out. It's because if there was, there'd be a little tiny bit of metal that would lock them in there and you couldn't get them out. Now, the alternative is to make the cape a separate thing and put it on there, but they saved money and did that. That's fine, by the way. I'm just noting things, but it is something they decided to do, was to kind of flatten that out so that it could go there. That's exactly why the cape furls in like this, right, and connects here. That's exactly why they do a lot of that kind of stuff. Face looks great. The blade looks okay. I mean, again, it's not the nice ones we got in the first one. It's a worse quality blade. But this does have the handle showing up. Now the handle has almost no texture, right? I mean, so again, look, do you see the clear kind of ball and thing there, right? Still a little bit of mold line. Those the Master Darkness 1 Minis are not perfect, but this I think is the same concept. But it looks like it's all kind of one piece. And again, that's just because they can't have as much detail. It's not as good of a plastic. This cape is still such a highlight for me, though. I love that. Very soft line there, separating the cape from the helmet. But overall, this is probably my favorite so far, just because I really like that. Okay, we have one more mini here. These guys. Love how their horns turned out. I don't really care for them as a enemy. I think they look rather goofy, but I love the spiral part of that. It's really neat. Like, it's very, very obvious that this mini is who they are. They attached the axe to the base, and again, that is so that oh man. So yeah, I think each one of these is going to have a slight bend. This one's not too bad. Anyway, they attached it to the base so it's more connected. I'm fine with that. I think that's smart. I don't think it's quite the cleanest when it comes to, I mean, it looks like it's almost sunken in the ground a little bit. It would work if we were around dirt and not cobblestone, hellscape everywhere, but we are, so it's a little silly there, but it still works. It's still fine. Love this kind of leg thing going on there. That's kind of interesting. Very soft detail here. Again, on the side where the mold line is. This is the mold line right there. And sure enough, we get some really lackluster detail here, right? I mean, that is just... so far, each of these minis has had an issue, and that's unfortunate. All right, sorry about the lack of focus there. What I'm saying here is that the beard here has lots of texture here, but then just loses it here. Do you see that? Like, the closer you get to the head, it just smooths out to where there's zero texture when it's facing that. Now, I do see some here, but I see none here. It's completely flat here, so this is not equal. This is not equal. And then again, I don't know if I got this on camera well, but this softness right here, every single mini is having this issue right now. And that's really unfortunate to see that slack in quality or even consistency. Like I said, texture here all the way up to the cheekbone, zero texture up to the cheekbone, just smoothed out. There is a clear lack of focus. I'm now consulting on minis like this, and this is exactly what I do. I look at every little detail and I try and check, is this consistent? Does it look good here? Oh no, on the underside of the arm here, it's a little blurry or whatever. Okay, because at the end of the day, the manufacturer isn't there to sculpt the mini for you. And so they will cheap out, they will do a quick job or whatever, because it's not their, you know what I'm saying? That's not their thing, and it's just part of manufacturing, especially overseas like that. The difference in language barrier, and they have a ton of clients. It's not just you. You're not getting the white glove treatment by them or anything like that. It just, you need to look and actually pay for alterations, resculpts, tooling, all this stuff to make sure that things come out well. When you don't, you get an unboxing like this where you just kind of spat it out at them and try to cheap out, and it's noticeable. Okay, this character here, I do like this. I think that looks really cool, and yeah, it's kind of interesting that it looks like this whole front half is one piece and then this back half is another piece. I think this was done quite well because she has this armor over her head, over her whole torso, that kind of makes the line just make sense. It's the end of the armor, right? So I think that works. Face-wise, the face sculpts are pretty not detailed. I have a miniature quite like that for Master of Darkness 1, actually. Again, forgive the painting. This was the first time I even did OSL. But way back when I was doing this, and oh gosh, look how bent that got, dear Lord. Her lips are really a thing, so you kind of had to fake it, right? You had to paint down that detail. And I'm seeing the same thing here, where there's just not, there are lips, but I don't think the whole face is really sculpted well, if that makes sense. Additionally, I think there's, again, kind of just a lack of detail here. So you see the very slight detail you can see in here. When you prime and paint that, that's not going to show up. You're going to have to paint that in, right? No dry brush will bring that out, not even the lightest one. It's just too faint, and to the point where you lose it here, and it just goes completely soft. There's just no texture here. You'll see the same thing with her horns. You see on the horns, there's a slight hint of ridges, especially in the front, because they paid attention here, right? So these are enhanced, but the back side, they're not. Not only that, but look at this. This is completely smooth here. There's zero ridges here. But on the back, there's a slight hint. So you can tell they wanted it there, but it didn't end up there. Again, just a complete lack. And then again, you see the deeper ridges on this side, but they just didn't pay attention to the back. Did they not flip the miniature over to look? Look at this. There's nothing there. What does that divot into? Like, this will paint nicely. This will not. This looks cartoonish. This looks more realistic. Tail, I'm actually fine. A lot of times we don't put a lot of deep ridges on there, so I can get a little worm-like. There is a ridge line that's fairly obvious right here. That's kind of unfortunate that you can, come on, focus. You can even like catch it right there. And that's pretty hefty. Feet-wise, where'd the freaking foot go? What the heck happened here? Look at this. It disappears. Her foot is broken. Okay, this is her leg, right? Do you see this? Do you see the leg part here? Yeah, right? There's a leg there. It's connected. Look at this. Where does it go? It goes completely flat. There is no ankle here. Where'd this part go? They just completely smoothed it out. This is what I'm talking about. This is probably a change the manufacturer did. I thought they, handed this to them without a freaking, half of an ankle. All right, I really doubt they did that. But then the manufacturer says, okay, to make it, we have to do this or that or whatever, and maybe it needed to be flat here. So they'll just cut it off. They'll just be like, all right, it's gone. And then you have to go and say, no, you got rid of the ankle. You need to still put the ankle in there. Why don't you just make the cape go over the ankle or some junk like that, right? You got to talk with them and work with them, and it's a process, and it takes time, and it takes money. But you end up with 2 ankles instead of 1 ankle with 2 feet. Speaking of feet, this whole piece just became crap. At least this, you can see a slight bit of hoof. This has no hoof. This has nothing. I miss the days when Come On made good minis because this is not a great mini. There are parts that are nice, but just parts. All right. Oh, look at this. Perfect. A sword. We'll compare swords. I love the design of this with the broken wing here. I think that's cool. I really like that. I'm actually a fan of the hexagonal faces, and I love the sash on here. Like this just looks so good, the crinkling and all that. This does not, though. You can add a ridge to this, and in fact, there is more of one here. Do you see how there's a slight ridge to this? Maybe just a slight one. Do you see how it curves in just slightly? Do you see that? Just slightly curves in here. Nothing here, completely flat. Again, they'll do this, and you'll ask them, oh, hey, or they'll do this, and you have to talk to them. You have to tell them, like, hey, you see how you made a slight ridge here? Make a slight ridge here. They can do that, but you have to tell them to. They didn't. They just spat these out and said, yep, these look good, and then that's it. And it's unfortunate to see that. It's unfortunate not to see the quality there. For instance, right here, they would needed to connect this, right? So what did they do in here? They literally just like made it like start stargating up to it just to connect it more artificially. When what you would ask them to do is, well, just make this whole thing kind of lift more naturally up instead of in the back flipping it that way and on that just stretching it out that way. It looks artificial. Let's look at the swords. Okay, so obviously more detail on this one than that one, right? But the handle's a little bit skinnier and a little bit better, right? That handle's a little messed up. Again, these were not perfect, but again, you can see the difference here. Hopefully you can. You can certainly feel the difference. This is pretty good. It's not bad. It's not this. And okay, so I'm just going to brush these, and you can tell me which one's bending more. This is one motion. Hopefully you can see that. So this bends wildly and easily. This does not. There is a slight difference in length. That will account to it a little bit. But honestly, this is just better plastic. And I know I've said that a lot. Moving on to this. Love the texture on the wings. This looks great. All of these wings look nice. I'm fine with the thickness. I think they're sufficient, right? Not too thick. These might be a little bit thicker than these, but maybe just a little bit. I like the separate bones here. Like this just looks great. I really do like that. I like the holes here. And the hand is pretty small, which I appreciate as well. I don't know. I think it's just a fist. The hair looks good. A little soupy here. Overall, this is probably my favorite mini of the whole bunch so far. All right, let's look at these little guys. Kind of goofy. They don't have legs. I didn't really notice that. Again, Stargate, you see how it just stretched out? See, just straight across? There was a ridge here. They said, oh, we can't do that. And just, okay, let's cut it in half, I guess. The texture here, like the different rock outcroppings and stuff, very well sculpted. I do appreciate that. And looks like they did add the head separate, right? Because you do have this kind of gap here. And it looks good. I like it. I think that looks nice. The face looks pretty good. I mean, there's not a whole lot of detail to show, but what it needs to show is there. So overall, I would say this is pretty good. And yeah, again, I do like this, just the rigidness of the little blocks that he's kind of coming out of. I do really like. Overall design, cool. Just unfortunate with that stargating there. Just that stretch. Just, I don't know, man. I don't know. All right, that's it for all those guys. Put a lid on it. Put a lid. I'm sure people are saying that. Stop complaining. Sorry. All right, let's look at some one-off minis here. This guy looks cool. I love the look of this guy. Again, that fur looks so good. And this cape looks great too. Looks dirty. I like his big old hammer here. I think that looks awesome. A little bit of a mold line issue there, but not too bad. The thickness of the underside of here looks really nice. A little thicker here. It's fine. A little ridge would have been appreciated. And then again, same here. Okay, so this is... What the heck? What happened? Why is this going through his leg? Where are his bones? What is this going through? So again, because it's solid like this, right? Instead of adding a texture here of the bone or something, it just looks like it's like in a video game when there's no collision and things are just clipping through things. How is this going through his leg? There's no, do you know what I'm saying? Just visually, it doesn't make any sense. This works. This doesn't. This is just a cape going through a leg. Like, I don't understand. It's just unfortunate. And you don't do the bulge here, right? So in other words, if this is leaning out, why is it straight here if this bulges out? Technically, there should be a bulge here. Instead, it looks like this is just thicker, I guess, or something. I don't know. There's a very slight bulge. I don't think it's enough, especially on a small miniature like this. You have to exaggerate some things sometimes to really get a sense of it. This is flattened, right? So it's one solid piece. So they didn't have to put two pieces there. It works. They added some texture there. It's fine. A little bit less on the bottom, so you get a little bit of stargating there. But at this point, I'm going to pick my battles. And again, completely flat here. See this texture on the inside? No texture on the inside. They just cut it through. You have to tell them, hey, can you add some texture there? And they'll say, yeah, okay, how's this? And it'll look better. And that's all you got to do. Come on. Just don't be lazy. It's not hard. They want to make a good product too, but they're not gonna like babysit your game, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. Yeah, I like this. I think it's cool. I don't know what's going on here. I think he's supposed to have horns here, but notice there is texture on this horn, and there is exact here. Okay. Do you see this horn here? See how skinny it is? Do you see the texture on it? Like right here, there's texture on this horn. Notice this horn is thicker and zero texture. Nothing. It's baby butt smooth. Why does this one have texture and this one not? Tell me that. I don't know. You tell me. It's not my mini. I'm just wondering why it's so asymmetrical, and I doubt that's on purpose. The armor is cool. I like the exposed bones and all that. I think that looks cool. And the fingers came out quite nice, actually. I like the fingers as well. And this is how war-torn this is. This looks dirty. This is one where you want to like apply a wash and like just make it dirtier the farther down it goes and add some like mud stuff or something maybe even. I dig that. And his face, pretty cool too. I like that. All right, the big boss guy of it. His wings are bigger. That's how you know he's important. Again, super smooth on the outside. It's like Play-Doh or clay or something like that. Zero texture at all. The tail is separate here, and look at that. It has detail, but again, look at this. Look at this. It's so flat on here. It's so cut off on here. They can't texture this at all, so it just stays flat. This makes no sense. Why is this flat? There's no base underneath it. Do you? I just. It's the same reason why this is flat here, right? Because it can't curve underneath. It just looks silly when stuff is like. Tell me you don't see that. Tell me this doesn't stand out like a sore thumb. Everybody that looked at this mini had to see this. To me, it stands out anyway. Again, this time it is angled in, so it's not that flat. You see that little ridge they're able to add? They're able to add this to all of them. They just don't unless you ask them to. All of the different armors, that actually looks kind of silly. Like it looks like it just has a whole bunch of nipples everywhere, but whatever. The tongue looks great. The inside of the mouth, I think, is slightly textured, but just slightly. The eyes look good. Horns look great. The hair back here looks fine. Texture here looks good. The mace, star mace kind of cudgel thing going on here looks neat. I like that. Don't get hit by that. Yeah, overall, okay. All right, we got another one of these guys, but this person has more horns. So these two are smooth. I'm fine because it's consistent. The ridges here and the ridges here are very different. Hopefully that's on purpose. Same with the ridges here. These are very faint ridges. This is ABS, this entire arm is, and they had to glue it in there. The glue seems done pretty well. The assembly's pretty good. He's like on this tentacle, and again, do you see how like this starts to curve in? So it looks pretty good. This is just cut off right here. Do you see that? It doesn't curve in. This curves in just slightly, just enough to make it seem separate from the base. This just goes bloop right into the base. And so it looks cut off because it is cut off. He does have the backs of his feet, so that's helpful. He has his feet intact. Let's see, still super smooth here. I think this is on purpose at this point, but it's kind of hard to tell because I still see a little bit of ridges, and there were those other ones that had ridges and then they stopped. This time now, this is full smooth. And same with the back here, just full smooth here. The assembly here looks good. This is not attached as an ABS. I mean, you can tell the difference there, right? Like that is a big difference when it's ABS. Tail looks like it's about the same texture as before. I'm fine with that. The hooves both came out good. This is a better Mini, for sure. Definitely better. This is just, there's no real beating around the bush there. And I like that. I'm glad it's better. Okay, we got Mr. T-Pose. I don't like the pose of this. It's a joke in video games because it's the static. When you upload a model, it just T-poses, which is the T, right? The arms go straight out, face there. It's a very fake pose. It's very cheap to make. As you can see, it's very flat. It's one sculpt that you get to do here. Look at the curved blade, though. Do you see how that's curved there? And again, that's just from it being ABS, or sorry, PVC. So it's just going to be a little bit more bendy, and I'll just need a TLC it. Hot water plus cold water at the end. You can hot water, it becomes bendable. You put it there, you put it in cold water, freezes in place. Detail-wise, though, I really like this. I love the innards here. That's disgusting and cool, and I dig that. The mold line here didn't ruin too much, which is nice. I do like the ridges of the chains there. The face mask thing is pretty cool. Like that, you can see the eyes. Boils in the skin are nice. The separation of the armor is good. Satchels look good. I like the lids or the flaps to them. I think that came out well. The wrap here is going to like that this looks inherently separate, so that's nice there. I don't know, I don't know where these swords go or what goes in here. Is this a quiver? Is this a, like, what is stored in there? I don't know. It's closed off as far as I can tell. Kind of interesting. Overall, okay. A little bit plain in the sculpt, right? So same kind of thing here, right? We're going for the flat, cheap one sculpt. This is cheaper to make than, oh, let me get one that's not, than like this, for instance. This is a more expensive Mini because of this ABS, because of the multi-part. Regardless of how cool they look, this is more expensive. Now, more expensive doesn't mean it's always better. It doesn't mean that at all. You can mess that up, especially with assembly or something like that. Or you can make cool designs that don't need a whole lot of pieces. I think this guy's pretty cool, to be honest. I really like it. The chain looks actually really nice. I love the chain here. Like, that looks good. The texture on the armor looks great. His face, I feel, is a little bit more noticeable, assuming that's a face. It looks kind of like eyes. A little bit of cleanup there, not too bad. The back of it's all swirls, but I appreciate that. I like the little bits coming off of his arms. So it's just followed the whole Mini through. This, I feel, is a much better version. I do really like this. I don't know what these are. I don't know what's going on there. It's kind of interesting. I would have to look at the art to know even how to paint that. All right, now we got the, I think these are satyrs. And again, ABS here. That's why it's shinier. That's why it goes all the way up to the arm. This is all ABS here, and the hand, and it's cut off right here. This bit here is ABS, and it looks nice. I'm glad they're paying to have that ABS. A little mold line even on the base here. The texture looks good. They did a smart job here. Now, the assembly is atrocious. This is a very poor assembly. So it's just, and honestly, it's just not a good cut. It's a little too rounded. But you see how they ended the fur here and then started new fur? That is helpful. When you have the fur across a cut, there's an issue there. So this is something, again, I've been talking about in my consulting, just to make sure that it just flows nicely. So when it does fit, assuming it's assembled nicely, that it looks a little bit more natural. It doesn't, when you cut one line, you're going to see that line horizontal through the hair, which just doesn't make any sense. But anyway, that's the symbol here. This is also a piece here. And so you can see it's assembled there. I think it came out okay though. I do like this fur. The fur looks nice. The horns look super cool. I dig that. I'm okay with that. Little soft details back here where it just kind of dissolves, whereas here it's nice and rigid. Unfortunate that again we're losing detail so much on these minis. Kind of in random places. It's not even. The ears look better. They're a little bit more curved in than normal, or at least than previous. So I dig that. And look at that. It didn't. Why is this one able to overhang? This one wasn't cut off straight. Anyway, it's just not very consistent, right? All right, let's look at some heroes and some big enemies. All right, here's one of them. He's got his horns here. This has obviously changed quite a bit since the original one, because the original one's resin and isn't mass injected. So these have been pushed back a little bit, so they're less like in your face, if that makes sense, and more streamlined. I'm okay with that as long as it works well. This is my problem with this, is the stargating again, where it just goes straight back. These were supposed to be horns, but what horn? You weren't saying it should have been cut off here, but then there was a gap here. So what they do is they lean it back, but then just make it attach here so there's nothing behind it. And so it doesn't look like a horn anymore. Like it looks okay there. It looks okay there. It looks terrible here. Like it just, like what, why is it so thick? It just doesn't make any sense. This looks good. I appreciate the staff here. It's connected in some good spots. A little bit of a runner issue there where the plastic got a little worn. That's pretty normal. All of his cape here has a slight ridge. That's appreciated. This is probably the softest ridge though, and also one of the most noticeable pieces. So see how that ridge helps sell that look? And you see how you kind of start seeing the side of this here, so it's not quite as sold. That's what I mean by that. This is super fat, right, to connect it, of course, make it all flat there. And then it looks very stupid down here because it doesn't go all the way down, but this is all filled out artificially. From the front looks good though. It just looks super thick here, like weird thick. Let's see, the dagger is cool. I like the separation here. Detail is okay, a little soft here. Everywhere else, I think the detail's good. And okay, now you see the little ridge here. No ridge here inside. This goes flat. In fact, you can't even tell where the side, where does the side start and the inside? It's just all one. It just morphs all into one thing. There's a little bit of a lip here, but none here. No separation here. It's just completely flat. Unfortunate to see. Here, again, no ridge, but at least they group it together or something like that. They put a lot of changes on this one from the model that we saw, and it doesn't look good for it, in my opinion. I think this is a shaman. It's a bug. I'm fine with that. A little kind of interesting how they connected him, or her. I think that's fine. The blade actually looks pretty good. You can see how bendy it is, though, right? And again, compared to that, this just bends super easily. This does not. Love the face, though. That looks cool. The horns here look neat. I like the wings and the design in there, though. They get a little soft here as they like go into the ground, I guess. I don't know. Let's see, detail in the back looks good. Overall, happy with it. Again, just kind of interesting that this is, you almost need to bend that a little bit more. Very small mini, so very easy to look at. All right, here's the big person. This is a person I played as in my session with it. And I think she's super cool. She seems really strong. This is interesting. See on the bottom here how they textured this? See how that's textured? See how that's not textured? Why is one textured and one not? Again, because you didn't force consistency. You got to tell them. They textured this. That's nice. They did not texture this. And it's very obvious. And again, if it would have been textured here, you could forgive how thick this is, especially when you can see it from the back. This is attached here. I think that's a smart move. Looks overall pretty good. I like the detail level. These look nice. They are separate. However, again, the inside, completely flat. Well, minus the, the clipping. But there's no texture in there at all. But the texture on the sides look good. The face looks interesting. I like that. I like the shouting. It does have teeth. I appreciate that inside of the mouth. Again, a lot of little doodads here for armor, I guess, and decoration. Overall, cool mini, I would say. Just really unfortunate that it's just, again, so inconsistent. As always, apparently. Right here is the Rogue. So same issue here, right? First of all, I do appreciate the assembly here. That actually looks quite nice. The legs are essentially coming out of it, but I think it works well. I like the general thickness. It's not too thick, but also not too skinny to worry about. It's a little thick here as it goes to match this artificially, but you know, whatever. Apparently it's just really thick randomly there, because that's how we buy cloaks. I like that the face is inset. I like the hair spilling out. It's very noticeable that way. This doesn't work so well. This is okay though. Again, it doesn't make much sense that it follows the blade like this, you know, so perfectly. In fact, the blade is slightly curved to match the cape. But in here, you can see how it has a bit of an edge, and this looks great, but then it dies here. This is, again, something I've been talking about, right? You see how this has two different sides, and they both look separate? You see how this kind of starts blending into it, and that's exactly why, because it literally does blend right into it. You lose depth here and here, right here and right here. And you can fix that. You just need to take some time with it. That's all you got to do. Overall, yeah, cool. I dig it. Again, I like the cape. Very dynamic mini, very cool looking. Definitely more dynamic than some other ones. This is probably the most Massive Darkness 1 looking guy in the whole group. I probably have somebody that looks just like him, just about, right? He looks kind of like this guy, who has a nice bend after being stored in storage over the summer, and you know, all sorts of other stuff. But anyway, very similar. And notice on this one, again, like it just didn't come to a good point on this one. It's not overall great. And notice the difference in size, right? I feel like that is something that I've been noticing, is not necessarily the size and height, but in bulk and in style. Because look at his hands. Look at the hand difference. Again, while these are interchangeable technically because of the pack, they don't really fit together next to each other. This guy just is overall bigger everywhere. Bigger chest, bigger head, bigger hands, bigger feet, bigger... Like, do you see the difference in the feet? Like, this guy looks like he's half Hobbit comparatively. Look at the size of the shield compared to this guy, right? Very different in style. So while you can use these guys, it's going to look really silly when you do, because it's like taking a Space Marine and putting them next to him. They're just fundamentally different. Again, I get tired of saying this, but this is all completely flat, lazily done. Same here. It could do better. The shield does look super cool. I love the battle damage on it. Love the satchels. The armor looks like it came out great. The thickness of this helmet part is great, which I'm glad. Same with the outside around here, because that's the central area you're typically looking at is the face. Yeah, overall, this is a nice one. I dig it. All right, we got one more, and then the big bad guys. We got the Centaur here. I think it's another Ranger. Definitely big. Looks like it stands okay. It's not going to topple over too bad. It can if you do try and grab them from here, so keep that in mind. Have the 3 arrows. I think the 3 arrows look cool, and it helps thicken this up. They did flatten it here, which is fine. I'm okay with flattening it right against armor, even though you wouldn't do that because you would burn yourself and be cut and bleeding just from the friction. But again, it wasn't done super well, and so you can see that separation here, right? Or that the blending of the two, or the details just kind of go away, right? It's just straight across into the arm. This looks nice though. Like, I really do dig that. I think they did a good job overall with that. So that's cool. I don't know what this is here, if it's supposed to slot one or not, maybe. Detail in the armor looks good. I like that. The hair looks interesting. This one's kind of weird that it's so high up. Like, is he trying to poop? Why is that so much higher? I don't know. It's got a little gap there. That looks cool. Yeah, the legs of the horse look okay. This seems really bent to me. Like, it just seems, and maybe it's because it's straight, whereas this is always bent, but it just looks almost like the leg's broken, because it's like, bloop, bloop. Maybe they can invert that much. I don't know. Like it's not too much different than this, but this is angled this way. This is like, do you see the angle difference here that I'm kind of talking about? It just seems odd. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. It looks weird. Underside, again, now you're kind of cheating. You can't judge too much, but you can judge it a little bit. At least I can. And it's all flat here, right? And flat up here. But this is angled up, which is good. Same with this, so you won't see that. So it looks good. So they handled that, I think, quite well. Yeah, overall cool. I like the fact that the shield's right in front. And again, the face, I think, looks neat as well. Let's look at some big minis. Look at some big ones. Let's see. Let's start big. And that's an air... Oh, no, don't tell me. Okay, so some of these are locked in. I'll complain about that in a moment. Let's look at this big guy here. Well, obviously, the bigger the miniature, typically the easier it is, the nicer it is. There's a little bit of a warp, not too bad. It is connected on 3 different points. I'm glad it's connected at the tail because these are very small points. They did not connect this though, which I actually appreciate because it's front and center, and then it helps to make it look separate and different. Yeah, the difference between the almost like a robotic and the organic look great. The boils look nice. The ridges look nice. All the different lines here are interesting. These are lines out instead of in. As a painter, I prefer them to be inset, not outset. It's easier to paint because you don't have necessarily these walls to kind of paint, if that makes sense. But overall, okay. Again, I like the separation between the hard lines and the soft lines. I like that he's coming off the miniature or base here and here and here. The overall design of the kind of the curve and the fact that he's a little bit more forward facing, it gives him a much more aggressive tone. I dig that. These tentacle things look okay. They're fine. Yeah, overall, I actually really like this guy. I like that it's all textured underneath actually quite well. That looks good. And the assembly is nice. Yeah, there's a lot there that I like. I appreciate it. All right, next up. Jeez, all right. Well, here, I'll show you what I'm looking at here. So, I'm trying to get this person out. And you see how they're locked in? This will also ruin a paint job, and like badly, which is really unfortunate. It's locked right here. So I'm going to zoom in again to show you what the lock is, what I mean, and how you can fix it. Okay, so if you paint this mini and you're constantly popping them out and back in, especially with that much force, you're going to rub off the paint even with the varnish. Okay, so what you can do is the lock is right here. Do you see that? See how it overlaps the mini? So you have to actually pop them out, and then it pops them back in. Now that keeps them secure, but it's better to just have a lid, you know, maybe 2 dimples right here that kind of hold on to it versus that just so it doesn't come out. And none of the other ones, by the way, are locked in. It's just that one, so that's unfortunate. However, with that in mind, you can cut this a little bit right here, and it's also right here. Right, so you have to cut these 2, or take the miniature out, obviously, get a hair dryer to heat it up, and then you can actually essentially make this malleable and warp it out that way. This is the 2 ways to do it. You can cut it, or you can, oh, jeez. You almost have to take one out and then the other. Okay. And then, you know, just warp it whichever way you want. All right, let's zoom out a little bit now. All right, this came out actually pretty good. It is ABS, so that's why it's, I mean, you can tell. Definitely ABS, right? A big difference there. And it shows. It's nice and straight. It's pointing out. It's cool. I think it's interesting that she's looking up. So she's like grabbing this thing to start, you know, shooting the arrow. But yet this is out. And she's not pulling on it at all. Well, there's no bow. It's nice to see that the bow is like that and then would bend in. A lot of times bows are, especially because they are supposed to like, it just depends on the bow, right? But my understanding is they can stay pretty straight and then get bent back. So that's nice. So again, I love the necklace there is really cool. The face is interesting. I like the little hat thing. I like that she's looking up. I like how this is all gap. And you kind of get this nice, interesting slant going on here, right? Where it's almost the exact same angle, which I actually think is kind of neat. I don't know if it was on purpose or not. This is all ABS here, and then it matches right into this body, which is not. Texture-wise, this looks great. I love the fur here. I love the cape here. All that looks good. Love the little ruffles. I'm not really seeing any bad mold lines. There is a bit of scratching here. You can see that kind of right here. Don't know what that's from, but that's a thing apparently. Yeah, overall this looks really nice. I dig that. Again, a little thick here, but not too bad. Yeah, no, it looks cool. It looks interesting. Again, it's interesting that she's not looking even at what she's doing. She seems very dismissive about it, if you ask me. Right, next up, we have this guy. I'm going to have to start zooming out more and more. All right, again, you see the ridges here? That looks great. See the lack of ridges here? That does not. It's very inconsistent on which one has a ridge, which one doesn't. But this just makes it look, I think, a bit silly. And it's hard to paint, right? Do you paint it all black all the way to the edge here? You know, and it's better to make it look like this, right? Now, luckily, you're looking up or down, and so you don't really see that. You see a little bit of the side here, though. But there is a nice texture here. It's not super flat, right? All of this is textured still, which also helps. These like leather ribbon things are really good. The assembly here looks nice. Again, ABS weapon, appreciate that. Should start with these. These are much nicer, and they're bigger. It just makes sense. Different style wing. So I don't like that. I don't like when the wings are inconsistent in style. Let me find, where's the other wing guys? All right, so apparently I forgot to look at this guy, but it will still make a great example. First of all, love the tablet, love the arrow in there. I think that looks great. The huge long sword, again, ABS, looks great. Love these guys a lot. But you'll notice the difference in wing. Do you see how one is cartoonish and one is not? It's like two totally different art styles. This is really curved, which is cool. This one has texture, right? And this one has zero texture, just lines to it. This is like the anime version, and then this one is like a Jungle Book style version, maybe like the old cartoon, you know, or something like that. Like it's very different style. One is suggestive, one is more textured, right? One has no texture, one has some texture, and that bothers me. It bothers me because you can see them side by side, and they're fundamentally a different. Do you get what I'm saying here? Like this looks almost like a Gundam wing. This looks like an actual feather. That's my issue there. And I don't know. I guarantee two different sculptors did it. And then they just mashed these together because I don't know why the same sculptor would suddenly randomly start to do wings a completely different texture. It makes no sense to me at all. At all. Anyway, love the space here. Love the face and the tongue. I think that's really cool. I've already kind of communicated. I do not like these wings at all. I think it matches with the other things. And if I had to pick one, I wouldn't like that one. This assembly here, I think it looks a little lackluster because you can tell it's one solid piece and then coming out. But this isn't. Do you know what I'm saying? I think this was supposed to be pushed in more, right? Because it looks like some weird bulge. And then it comes out of this like pod outside of his back instead of coming out of his back. So it's like it didn't press it down enough or something like that. If these were two separate wings going in, then like what the heck is this? Like what is this lip here? Like I honestly think this just wasn't assembled well, and I almost want to freeze them and try and see what the issue is there. I can almost take it out, guys, which I might do because it is that bad. Like why? There's no texture here. It's like it was supposed to be pushed in and then just didn't. I don't know. So wings, just the terrible, terrible wings. I do like the kind of halo thing here, and I do like his armor style. I think that was cool. Even the metal feet. We got two more minis for the core box. Let's look at this guy. Awesome, awesome weapon. Nice ABS. I really dig that. This looks super great. I love the tentacles. I think that looks awesome too. I love the little suction cups. That being said, see the suction cups here that have a little circle? It's a very cheap way to make it look like that instead of a cup, but it works. Notice no circle. Where'd the circle go? Again, this is something you can mention. Why do some have circles and some don't now? What did you do, right? Like let's fix that. Also here, it's like a weird hair in there or something. It wasn't me. I just opened this. Completely flat here, right? Love the texture on the outside. I think that looks great. I do really dig the texture. And for the most part, the ones you're seeing do have the holes. So that's helpful. Right front and center is a runner, though. That's kind of unfortunate. The face is interesting. Is there supposed to be a face there? Because it looks like there's little eyes. Did they forget to assemble this? Hold on, I'm gonna check. Should I have a face here? Did I lose a face? Because it looks like there's two little nubs for eyes, which would be, you know, a bummer that's just missing. Okay, so right here is the art, and it looks like the answer is probably no. I think it's supposed to just look like that, but I think painted, it would look interesting, right? You would paint this black, and then those two little nubs, you would paint yellow. But without paint, it looks stupid. It looks dumb. Why are the eyes sculpted like that? It looks like some weird... Again, maybe painted, that looks fine. But for a sculpt, I think it looks really, really silly. Otherwise, I think this is cool. I love the little tiny cape here. Right? I love how... Why is all this, like... Why is there this hair? Why did I get somebody's hair? Maybe it's a plastic piece. I love how tall it is here. You can see the kind of the breakdown of the texture in here a little bit. But just a little bit. It's not too bad. And again, you really got to look for it. I love that... Again, it's so much taller and everything. I really appreciate that. I think that's really cool. It's a cool mini. They didn't connect this, which I like. I appreciate that. They didn't try to. It's plenty sturdy without it. Very cool mini. All right, so here's another issue. They were so focused on getting this like so small that you get this overlap stuff, and this overlap stuff is really rough because I can't take this out without also taking out this person at least and then sliding it out, or one or the other probably. So this is an FYI. All right, here's the goose. So yeah, wobbly base, right? Quite the wobble on the base, as you can see. The sword, super cool. I like the sword. Looks nice, looks great. I'm glad they spent the money to ABS it. You can see the assembly line there. This little sun thing will look cool painted. Again, we have that kind of different wing thing, and it might just be a fallen angel versus a regular angel, but I don't like that. I think the angel should have one style wing, and the difference should be that one's all like messed up. Now this is bent, and I don't think that's on purpose. I think this is on accident. I don't believe it should be bent. On the artwork here, we can't see it at all because it's like some, separate thing. It doesn't quite match, right? But I'm assuming it's not supposed to be bent like that. This is probably, and you can even see the little bit of, I think, whiteness there. So it needs to be strained back maybe a little bit. I'm going to put it straight, that's for sure. So that's just a bend from, the mold or whatever. And then also here, it's unfortunate that we did get this, because this is a separate piece, right? And they just printed this flat. And often you do that, you get these little inside parts. You'll see this on the inside of shields sometimes, but only sometimes. You can hide them. These did not. And so these are very much manufacturing backgrounds, right? As opposed to something like this, which notice there are no little circles there. So unfortunate that they did that, because it's very noticeable from the back and almost framed. Like, hey, look at me. You'll have to trim that out. And that'd be hard to trim too, right? To kind of hide that in the paint job. Thickness of the wings is good, and when you make it like this, people are going to pick it up often by the wings, so you need to make sure that's thick enough. Not attached to the swan though, or whatever the heck this thing is, that works. They did end up floating the crown in there, which I like. I think that's cool, and I dig the banner thing here, though it's not really hung on anything, which is kind of weird. Love the aggressive nature of this, how he's kind of pushing forward. Huge shield. It's kind of an angry face. I love the shield. Except the inside, which again, just like I said, sometimes they'll cheap out and you'll get these circles here, this manufacturing lines, that's very obvious. It's not that close to his face, or his body. I do like the arm though. I really do appreciate kind of the arm strap here. Again, muscles look good, face looks good, armor looks great, cloth looks great, a good connection. So all that's really, really good. Overall, a very cool mini. There's definitely some issues. And he's still actually fairly flat, right? For having so many different parts. He's not super duper dynamic in that sense. But overall, in other words, he's not reaching back and so this wing is folded back with it or anything. It's very bloop, and then he's just angled on it. But still looks cool. I dig it. And actually, I wonder, should his wings be slightly angled? Because his wings look like he's standing straight up almost, but he is tilted like that. So I feel like his wings should also be tilted more, almost like that, right? But then have him, you know what I'm saying? Let's disconnect there. All right, guys, that is the core box. Let's dive into stretch goals. Dear Lord.